All right, welcome in to the first episode of this endeavor that Tambo and my
You're good.
we're good.
Yeah, we're live. We're good. Do you got me?
Yeah, I got you. It was it played back what I first started saying.
You should be good now. Go ahead.
Okay. Are we on cue now? Because it was just playing back it was just
Can you hear me?
No, there's like a playback.
Yeah, good for a starting episode. But you can hear me. We're live. It shows live 1 minute and 29 seconds, and we're good to go.
Yeah, there's like what happens is I'll say something and then it plays back. It plays back for me. So while I'm talking, I can hear.
Do you have the YouTube video open?
Oh, there we go.
We solved the problem, folks. First video ever live between Andy and I. We're so excited for this collaboration. I go, hey, Andy, you're the best host. You hop on and host this thing. We'll be all good. Even though it's my platform that I'm always hopping on every day and saying my same intro, I was like, I do believe this is the best choice. And then Andy has the YouTube video open. Take it away, my friend. Very excited to be here with you. Let's talk through it. Let's go with that like button. Subscribe if you're just joining us. Andy, take it away, my friend.
All right. So we're going to Tambo and I have been talking about doing something a little bit different in the PGA DFS space for a while. The goal of the show and the main hope is for it to be super interactive as well. Like we'll be utilizing the chat heavily. So feel free to just start dropping questions in at any time. Like we'll get to absolutely everything. We want this to be a conversation. I mean, the point is that Wednesday evening, the vast majority of players are building their lineups around this time or even later, right? And so a lot of the content that I do, I know Tambo does a show on Tuesdays. I put it out an article Wednesday mornings, and I do a podcast that I record on Monday evening. Ownership changes a lot. Like guys are catching late steam. There's weather changes. Wednesday night is truly like the best opportunity to utilize all the information that we have at our disposal and have the most up-to-date info. And that's why I think it's probably the best time for PGA DFS content. So I think the general format, Tambo, and I'll kick it to you on this too, if there's anything you want to add, maybe we'll do a little bit on the weather, a final weather update. We'll do a little bit on the golf course. We'll kind of go through every tier briefly, make some actual stands. Not enough content and shows are really telling you like, hey, this guy I am out on, this guy I am in on. So we'll try and go through every range and at least give a legitimate reason for why we are or are not on somebody. And then we'll get to questions after that. And then we're going to build a lineup together as well. For one of the single entries that will let the chat build. And if the lineup does well, like the chat is in on that lineup as well. So it's basically a free roll as well. But that's the tentative plan at the top. Did I miss anything, Tambo?
No, I like that one. Our guy Jason comes in and says this should be worth a lot more than the price of admission. Hopefully you were getting the popcorn and drinks while the previews were playing, because the beginning was definitely a misstep, but we're back. We're good. We're excited. Andy broke it down pretty solid, I think, just in general. So you guys know, we talked through this, excited for this because, everyone does a similar type show. There's all kinds of Q&As. For one part, for both of us doing a bunch of different content throughout the week, the idea is like for me, example, Monday with Kenny Kim is like almost like a first look. Then with Mayo, it's okay, this is where I'm at as of this time, but this will be the final thoughts. This will be kind of, I know where I'm at, can take some bigger stands, have some more ranges on where I'm at, see some of the late steam coming in. But weather will be more important. Again, remember that one thing Andy was, mentioning there, this is going to be every week. We're starting it in swing season to show you guys what we're about so you guys can try and get a feel for us, get some good feedback in there. Tell us what you want to see on these shows. Tell us what you like, don't like, we'll adapt and make it better. But interactive is key. We love a good interactive show. Our guy, Benet, Kevin, looking forward to this show. We are too. So excited to have you guys here. Lots of great people in the chat that we know and love to see. But ownership, late steam, some big boy stands, maybe some miscut calls, things like that, Q&A at the end. And then Andy kind of briefly hit on it, but we're going to do this all season long. A lot of people watching these shows aren't playing 150 lineups. They aren't playing 50 lineups. They're not playing 20 lineups. They're playing 1 to 3 lineups. So we're going to do like a single entry segment or like a 1 to 3 max. You could kind of apply it towards that, how you want to do it. But we're going to actually have some fun with it. So with all the stuff we talk about throughout the show and all the interactive stuff and the engagement and the back and forth, we're going to have it so it sets up at the end where we're going to take some of these plays and thoughts people have. And if we like that idea, we'll roll with it. We'll come to a conclusion on a single entry based off the chat and our decisions. And then we're going to enter it into something big. We'll let you know what it is. Today, we got a surprise for you at the end. It'll be a bigger one. And whatever we get out of that, we're going to give back 20%, in at least 20% in a free roll. So maybe 25%. We'll see what it shakes out to, but 25% we'll say today because I know what it is. So we'll give 25% back in a free roll to everybody that wants to join it. We'll post it on Twitter. It'll be fun. You guys can get involved. Andy, anything else you want to talk about before we hop into it? I don't see a ton with weather this week, but we could talk a lot about the course. That's your specialty. So I'll let you take it away from there. You said you got some good takes this week.
Yeah, I see virtually nothing with the weather, by the way. So I would say that I don't see a lot of value in using some sort of, even just as a tie break, in terms of a wave advantage. I think it's going to be pretty consistent throughout, somewhat similar scoring conditions from what we've seen in years past. It was a little bit firmer last year. And this is a golf course that has actually kind of trended closer over the last 2 years to playing closer to middle of the pack than one of the absolute easiest on the PGA Tour. And that's because, Northern California, this time of year, it can get a little breezy. It can get a little bit firmer. And there are some light breezes. Like I'm seeing pretty steadily consistent 10 to 12 miles per hour. But in terms of like how you would model out this course based on previous iterations of this tournament, I wouldn't dramatically shift or change anything based on the weather. Is there anything, are you seeing anything differently?
No, the chat did talk about it though here, just to pull it back up here right now. It said, where's it at? Pump for this. Yeah, going all 4 days. Our guy Oliver, pump for the Fortinet, going all 4 days. Going to be some cold mornings. Will you guys fade the really early starts for Showdown? And just to note it, going over to Windfinder, I'm seeing, it's, 55 to 65 in the morning, and then it heats up to like 75 in the afternoon. Do you have any take on that side?
What time is it heating up? By like noon or earlier?
Yeah, it looks like around noon, give or take. Yeah, roughly about 12, 1 o'clock local.
Yeah, so you're getting some of the super early starters are going to play, at least 9 of their holes in certainly 10 degrees chillier weather, but I don't think there's a stark enough difference. Also because it gets windier in the afternoon too. As Jason just said in the chat, like they almost cancel each other out. Like, yes, it's going to be colder in the mornings, but the breeze is going to kick up as the day goes on as well. So I wouldn't say any specific fade or play based on a potential weather edge this week for me.
You know who goes out really early in the morning in round 1?
Is it somebody that has already been mentioned in the chat?
The highest owned play of the week?
Homa,
728 on
yeah. See, that makes sense because they probably want to get him in the Friday afternoon TV window slot. I'd imagine.
That's right. First take on Homa coming back from Rome. I know this is some of the conversation people have had, all those thoughts. Where are you at with Max this week? Because I know we'll get to the tiers here shortly, but just in general, we could start the conversation around him. Obviously, coming off we got a 2-time winner here, but he's the type that really wants to prove that he can do something crazy. I think it's 2011 was the last time we had a 3-time winner. So what's your thoughts on Max Homa at the top?
So I'll start by saying this. I think he's underpriced. Based on my numbers and even the numbers of like the odds board, if you look at his outright price, Tambo, he is a Scheffler price on a week where Scheffler was like 12.5 in DraftKings, right? So to catch Homa at the betting markets seem to believe that he is like a 7-1 favorite in this tournament, but he's getting priced at 11K, which, is sometimes what a guy in a major is priced at who's 18-1. right? So you could make a clear argument that Homa's underpriced in this field, right? DraftKings didn't really take much of a stand in terms of, sometimes when they price those high guys really up there, like we saw them do at the British Open, for example, they're giving us some soft pricing this week. Now, in terms of ownership, I'm seeing around 30. I'm curious to get your take as well. 30 to 34 seems about right for me on Homa. I am tentatively out right now. I am not playing Homa as of now. I'm playing the guy right after him, who I'm sure we'll get to as well.
Somebody just asked that. Yes, I said, really wondering how much the road trip is going to affect Homa and Thomas. Thomas is the guy, of course, right after him. I am seeing, similar to you, around 30% for the ownership right now for Max Homa, but I'm also seeing that, just pulling things over and from, like you said, the odds perspective and just skill perspective and what he's done here in the past, just putting it all together. Even the long-term stuff, I use quite a bit of long-term stats. JT also, by the way, does pop in those, so that's something to note, but Homa still pops very heavily in those too. Even you go like 75 rounds and look at it, he's very solid in the stats that I'm looking for at this course, and for good reason. He's got some form recently, all that, but the note I have is like even at 35, 30, even at high ownership on Homa, I have the skill bump high enough that it's like, man, he really has to get there almost, because everyone said, like, this is the problem. And we talk about this stuff all the time. People love some good strategy on these shows. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is when someone says Homa at 11K, pretty much got to win or you won't need him. That's just so false, so wrong, so not true. It's like, again, It also depends on what all those guys around him do. There's definitely an opportunity where they don't come through and he does, or maybe only two of these guys come through. So, it all depends on what happens around him plus what he does. It's not just that. And like you said, when he's under, if they priced him, let's say correctly, if you want to call it that, quote unquote correctly, at 12.5 here, then that would, and everyone else was 10.5 and less, that would be when you have to make a decision. For me at 11K, I think you can get away with it still. It's just, subjective to which guy shows up, or, what your opinion is on what he comes back from, for those wondering in the chat. But give me your thoughts on JT. And I guess we're starting in these tiers. We'll go Cam Davis and up. You got JT, Jaeger, and Davis. We can get into some of these big stands and hard takes because I've got a couple of them, but I'll let you go first. Talk to us about JT before we hop into the rest.
Yeah. So, I was curious because the Rome thing I think is definitely worth noting. And I'll kick it to you after this too, because I'm curious on just to take a trip down unquantifiable narrative street for a second. Yeah. Who do you think has more pressure this week, Homa or JT? Homa going for the three-peat, or JT justifying the somewhat controversial captain's pick?
Gosh, do either of them have any pressure? JT already said in a press conference that he doesn't care. He doesn't need to validate anything, is basically what he said. He was pretty sharp on his answers around that and around the coaching stuff with his dad and the swing coaches and the putting coach and dropping him and all that stuff. So JT doesn't really come off like he has anything to prove. I think, again, my thing is more this is subjective too, say unquantifiable. If you know Max Homa, you've heard him talk, watched his interviews. I watched his interviews with, Mike, who's a, rapper, singer, whatever you want to call him and stuff, where he's got some good interviews out there that you can go check out, where even more than what we get to see on Twitter, more down to earth, more just sort of talking about some of those struggles. The year that he talked about when he made $8,000 or 18 grand, he's like, that's hard to do on tour. He's like, I actually made cuts and that's still how much I made. And I just think he's got more in him to a proving point of doing something like that. That would be huge for him, even though it's not a huge accomplishment. It is a huge accomplishment.
It is, yeah.
Three-peat. Sorry, I shouldn't say it like that. I mean, it's not a major. It's not winning the Ryder Cup, which is coming up. It's not a huge accomplishment to those out there thinking of it as comparable to a major, winning the Ryder Cup, all these other things. But it is a huge accomplishment. And I think he knows that. And I think he wants to get after it for that reason. So I think that's, again, completely unquantifiable. But all the stuff that is quantifiable is he's won here twice in a row. His stats look pretty good. Does a trip to Rome really matter? No one travels more than you, right, Andy? You travel plenty. You play golf plenty. You tell me these guys can get out there. They're going to find their game. And again, the field strength matters, right? It's not like they're going up into a major here or something like that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm not putting a ton of stock into their trip to Rome whatsoever. Homa also, I mean, this event obviously matters to him. I think there's a good chance he would be here even if he didn't win last year. I mean, he went to college at Cal, fairly close to Napa. He'll have a lot of support this week. He does anytime he's in California. I mean, and his record in California, if you just look purely at his strokes gained in California, I mean, he's won recently in the past 3 years at both Torrey Pines and Riviera, not to mention back-to-back wins at this place as well. So he always seems to raise his baseline in California. I will say too, and I hadn't realized this because it had been a couple of years ago, JT's played this event a couple times and actually been really good at this course. Like if you look at strokes gained total at Silverado across like the last 5 years, JT's up there. I mean, he has, I think the last time he played here it was a couple of years ago. So it was
2019 finished fourth.
Yeah, he's got three top 8 finishes. He hasn't played here since 2019, but in his last 3 appearances, he has gained over 5 strokes ball striking. So he has been fairly incredible at this golf course for what it's worth. I think the reason why I'm less scared about Justin Thomas than I normally would at this specific golf course, and this gets into some of my opinions on the golf course, and this take I'm sure will be applied to other players that we talk about later, because I feel a somewhat similar way about Sahith. If you really do a deep dive into why Justin Thomas has struggled over the last 12 months, it's not just one thing, right? There are multiple things at play. The putter's gone cold. He's turned from one of the best iron players into the world into a somewhat tour average iron player in a lot of his recent events. And he has not been able to keep the ball in play off the tee at a consistent rate whatsoever. When he's driving the ball well, Justin Thomas is a great driver. He's got plenty of distance, but the inaccuracy has been a massive issue for him this year as well, which hasn't gotten talked about as much as the iron play or the putting, but it's been just as big of a culprit of his struggles, just as much as those other 2 things as well. The thing that I like about Silverado is the fairways here, they are so narrow that elite accuracy as a skill is almost devalued. Like driving accuracy here last year is 48%. Yeah. Right. So nobody's, and you see this all the time at courses like Oak Hill when you get Kurt Kitayama and Cameron Davis and Bryson at the top of the leaderboard. Those guys spray it, and Rory having no idea where the ball is going off the tee. Those guys spray it all across the yard on these narrow fairway courses. And you think, how are the most wild drivers at the top of the leaderboard on a course with narrow fairways? Well, because what happens is Colin Morikawa, Brian Harman, those guys aren't even hitting the fairways, right? So what you have to actually be looking at is not how wide these fairways are, but what is the penalty for a big miss? And that is what comes into play at Silverado, right? Is that there's no hazards off the tee here, Tambo, at all. I mean, it's a tree line course. You can get yourself in some trouble off the tee, but this is not some sort of sticky, unpredictable Bermuda rough. It's very mild Kentucky bluegrass rough. Even the most accurate drivers of the ball are going to have trouble hitting the fairways. So one of the reasons why I think I have a little bit more confidence in this golf course as a get right spot for a player like JT, or why I think another player who's super inaccurate off the tee, Sahith, can play well here and has played well here, is because that elite accuracy actually gets devalued when you shrink the fairways to the point where under 50% of the field is hitting them, and there are no hazards off the tee. Sorry for being long-winded, but I think that's an important point to explain. The combination of the lack of penalty for wayward misses with the narrow fairways creates a situation where some of these wilder players off the tee, I actually think, gain a lot more of an advantage than they do on the average golf course.
And not just literally, but also I think mentally as well. And I love that you brought that up, because when it's like, okay, I'm doing it, but so are other people, even people in your group or you're starting. It's just, it's happening more on the course versus when you do it somewhere else. Like I forget who, I think Matt Wolff, before he went to live. Remember that year at the US Open? He went there, and after he wasn't playing, and I know he had said he had stuff going on mentally and all that, it was just to say, he had mentioned, he's like, the reason I played the US Open is because he's like, I knew everyone was going to suck. So if I suck too, it wouldn't feel as bad. And I mean, that hurts your heart to think about that and go and say, man, that guy's really struggling that bad. But it was like, literally his talking point was, if everyone else is going to suck, I can suck too. Here, not everyone else is going to suck. And I don't think JT's thinking that. But to your point, he knows he's had success here in the past. He's feeling pretty confident right now. I think he's rocking bucket hats and pool noodles out on the range. So I think he's feeling okay inside, and he's good with his comments today. Say, look, I don't need to prove anything to anybody. He knows what he is. This is why I always said about the Ryder Cup thing was the wins, the majors, everything that he had going for him, Ryder Cup records, match, like all that stuff. He just made sense anyway. So I'm with you on that. We'll talk more on this range in a second. This is going to be hard to keep up with when we get to like a major this season, but just to try and do it today to keep up. So wave advantages, no. What we were saying is it almost counteracts each other, where if you're out in the cold morning and then the wind the afternoon, that could be one way to look at it. But he said, I know Tambo always loves his PM/AM waves. They'll kind of counterbalance each other. But I always say at an event like this, I don't mind PM/AM waves because I think from some of the players in this field, the mentality can be tough. None of these are like, rock solid, sharp winners, all this stuff where they go out on Friday morning, they just play their game, post a number, and then wait around. Somebody that goes out with the pressure on them knowing I need to get to this number, the wayward drives, things like that happens. Sometimes they'll miss the cut on the number or it'll hurt them down those final 2 holes or something like that. Theegala getting his first win. Shout out to my guy, Alex. We'll talk on that when we get there. We'll talk on Akshay when we get there. Mr. Beast, I don't know about that, but just to say it, if you can get, I mean, they're probably calling maybe Akshay that after he came out of the water that time with the shirt off and everything ready to go. But Mr. Beast, I can never get these chocolate bars, whether it's Canada or they're sold out or whatever. If anybody can get me some Feastables, I want to try a D's Nuts bar. This guy said he got a special kind of chocolate bar. I like Tom Brady was raving about it. Bunch of different people. So, Benet, good question.
Good question. Yeah.
We are going to talk a lot more about this than other shows because what we've realized is way more people are just playing 1 to 3 max. And like I said, we're literally going to go through our thoughts and then we're going to use those thoughts as an interactive chat at the end, try and keep the show an hour or less always to build a lineup that we will put in our money to something else where others win based off of that. So if we win, others win. That's kind of the idea. We'll give back. Would you start home in a single entry? We'll talk about that more at the end. I think you can. I know Andy said he's going to make a pivot there, but I'm saying if you do it, it's not who you play. It's how you play him. I talk about this all the time, but there is other ways you can use him. And I'm seeing a lot of people going like Homa and then dropping down to a very balanced build. It's very clear this week. Some early thoughts here. People don't like the 6K range at all. I don't either really, but I'm saying where people are more comfortable is playing like 4, 7K guys and wherever it lands. And I think that's where you can get different a little bit. We'll talk about those bubbles near the end. Pool noodle effect. Yes. Talked about that. Anything else? Do you see these comments, by the way? I know we're doing.
I do. I see all of them and they're coming in I want to get to every single one of them because there's some good ones. There's some good ones as we go too.
We talk about this a lot. I mean, Bryson.
I agree. I agree with that.
That was the whole point when he won that year at the US Open. Like that's always the case. In y'all opinion, our guy Nick, would people be skipping the whole 10K range completely? I don't see it. I think if it's not Homa, JT, Jagger, who we're about to talk about in a second, I think, there's builds that start with Theegala, but when we know 30% of the field's going right to the 10K and above range, unless you're saying literally Davis, Jagger, Thomas, because technically Homa's 11, sure. I thought you were saying like 10K and up, so maybe clarify that for us. But any other thoughts up here, Andy? I kind of like Jagger. By the way, people don't want to pay. I don't think they do anyway. I want to pay 10-2 for Steven Jagger.
Okay. So that's the final question I wanted to ask you before we go down a little bit farther. So you prefer Jagger to Davis.
Yes.
Do you have their ownership pretty equal right now?
Yeah. So at SHIPITNation.com, we have it. You can use promo code Andy. By the way, you want to go to SHIPITNation.com, get 10% off your first month or your 6-month plan. Andy's got a special code you guys can use, get 10% off over there. But you can look at it here right now. I've got him around 15.5 for Jagger and around 16.5 for Cam Davis. So I think it's pretty close. I bet Davis to start the week because I didn't like the other numbers. And I was reading some stuff and I was like, okay, I'm feeling this. And then when I saw it come in, I was like, honestly, I think I would just have to side with my guy. I always play Jagger bombs. I love them. But what was your take? What's your thoughts on this one?
Okay, so I bet Davis too. I bet both of them. I like both of those guys a lot. I'm only going to play one of them. And I haven't totally made that final decision yet, but you have them lower than I did this morning. And my guess for that is that you probably have Sahith pretty high because I think the mistake that I made this morning was underrating the Sahith popularity. And I think that's important to talk about because as the day go, like I write my article for Rick Run Good in the morning, and I had Sahith at 19 when I wrote that article, and just talking in my group chats, talking in the Discord, talking to people, seeing on Twitter, I think Sahith now, as we stand here at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday night, I don't think there's a universe where Sahith comes in below 20.
I have him at 21.
Yeah. So,
and
even
that might even skyrocket more when you get into the higher dollar, smaller field stuff, because people are going to say, oh, I'm being sharp. This is what, again, not saying you're not sharp. It's that people say, I'm so sharp, I'm going to fade the top and just start with Sahith. No, almost everybody that's fading the top is starting with him. So again, can you still get away with it? It's not who you play, it's how you play them. Yes. But I'm just saying, it's not like this crazy sharp move to say, I'm not playing the top and I'm going to Theegala. Like that, it's what other people are doing too.
Well, my friend Kyle also brought up a really good point, is there often is, we have a history of evidence of late steam on Theegala. The last event that Theegala played, the BMW Championship, I don't know if you remember this, he came in way higher than his projections. Like,
yeah, he always does. We talked about this.
He always does.
Well,
yeah. So
there was one event he didn't when I thought he would. It might have been the very last, but it was the one before where it was like people projecting him at 13.
Could have been Memphis. Yeah.
And he comes in at 18 or 19, and people are like, "How did that happen?" Like Theegala, how did he get? He just always gets that love. Like Finau, Fowler, Fleetwood always used to get it. Theegala's become a guy that gets it now too. So he's always a guy that seems to get it late. Xander and Cantlay typically will get a little bit of love late, and people just love playing them. So definitely agree with that there 100%. I also have Hostler, and I have, who's the other guy? Akshay. Hostler, again, we're going in different ranges here, but I'm saying I'm taking a little off of Jaeger and Davis. I think it is the Homa or Justin Thomas decision where people are making it more up there about them. And then it drops down to me to like Theegala, Hostler, Akshay in that $8,700 to $9,800 range. But we can go on to the 9K range if you want. That's just saying that's where some of my ownership from Davis and Jaeger went to.
Yeah, I think the most interesting conversation about the 9K range is, first of all, I think we should give mention to Eric Cole, even if it's just a quick in or out. And then would you take a chance on one of these? Because in my opinion, the clear leverage plays, and I don't like either one of them, I'm getting different farther down the board, but the clear leverage above 9K is Norn and Spawn. Because I even think Putnam's going to generate some ownership. I think Putnam will be like nothing crazy. And I like Brendan Todd as well. Brendan Todd's probably my favorite of the groups. And I have Todd at like 11, 12%. I'm curious where you have those guys in, but like the way that I see this stacking out in like 9.5 and below, I have Cole at like 16, Todd at like 12, Putnam at like 12, and then Norn and Spawn in the high single digits, and Norn like 5%.
Yeah, I always think Spawn gets it late. I have Spawn much higher. You had my Cole number exact, very similar on Todd. I have Putnam a little higher. I guess I could come down.
I think you're right on that. If I said 12 for Putnam, it's probably going to be between 12 and 15.
Yeah, which I'm fine with. But the Spawn one we're off on, and I could be bad on this. I have Spawn around Putnam the same. So I have Hostler at 19. I think Hostler definitely gets that steam or not. Like Hostler is just going to get ownership here at 9,300. I think actually we're not going to get there yet, but I think Hostler is an interesting way where you could go about like starting a lineup with Hostler, if even using him at all. I'm just saying if you wanted to do that, then you're really making some stands because you're not playing Cole, Sahith, you're not playing Jaeger, you're not playing JT or Homa. That would be the way to do a balanced build, where I think people right now say, oh, I'm doing Theegala, balanced build. I'm unique. Maybe like overall you're like this is what people confuse too. I talk about it all the time, but like you're unique because you didn't dupe. But if you're really a 2v2 away or something like that on that, I just don't see a spot where you're actually being that unique. Now you're technically unique factually, I guess. You don't have a dupe, but you're asking for like a 2v2 to get to the top of the board. There's nothing worse than that in a single entry or something like that. I'd rather just have complete leverage or like a couple options where I already have a way to gain my way to the top with a build type. And to me, that would be a way to do it. So Hostler, definitely getting ownership. And then from down, I think it's like, what do you, depending, but Noren for sure, Todd for sure, look like they're coming in lower owned. And then Cole, I've got around 16 as well. So I think Cole's fine though. I think Cole at 9,500, he's still on my model going further rounds, like even taking it out even further. He still looks really solid across the board completely. So that'd be another guy you could actually start with as well.
So give me one guy above 9 that you're absolutely out on. No chance you're playing.
Right now, Noren. No Noren at all.
That's the easy answer, though.
Yeah.
No one's playing Noren.
I do spread it out a little more up top. I have some Theegala. I definitely have Cole. It is the 2 lower. Again, are they leverage plays? Yes. My point is I have guys like Spawn, Cole, Theegala. I still have them fine at 20%. Like I still have them. I'm basing it on like skill level versus ownership, and I'm still fine. And I know I can just get different elsewhere. So for me, Todd and Noren, 2 guys I have 0 of right now.
Okay. I'll tell you, I'll get this out of the way now. I'm never Bo Hostler. Ever.
I know
ever,
that.
ever.
We know that.
Never, ever Bo Hostler.
And I have much less of him than Theegala, Cole, Spawn, and Putnam. So if we're taking full stands, just talking through the entire range.
Yeah, you can plug and play that take for every single one of the 43 shows that we have coming up next. I am never Hostler. I'm not Hostler at 62. I'm not Hostler at 7,200. Sure as hell ain't Hostler at what, 93, 9,200. So that would be the one guy I'm absolutely out on above 9. I think the 8s, I mean, is there any, to put a bow on the 9s, any other questions or anything you want to touch on the 9s before we start talking about the 7 and 8s?
No, I think we can go to the 8s. Our guy, Uncle C, did bring this up as a good segue to the 8s. Is Kenny, my partner on Fantasy Golf Degenerates, Kenny Kim, says he's off of him. So it's a guaranteed top 10. That has been very legit, my friend. So feel free to go with that one. And then Andy says, am I different playing Homa with another 10K guy? That was definitely something I was going to be bringing up, because when you look at it, like I said, we know Homa's popular, but all these builds, when you just go click optimize on any site's projections right now or anything like that, you're seeing Homa with, honestly, it even skips the 9K sometimes, but there is 9K optimal builds, but it's Homa with at least one of a 9K or an 8K guy, and then a bunch of 7s. So while it doesn't seem like it would be that different, it actually does look pretty different right now to play like a Homa Jaeger type lineup, or a Homa. Maybe then you have to play your leverage play in a guy like, Todd, who you mentioned.
You can play Homa and JT. Like Homa's not priced up to the point where you can't play Homa and JT. It's not something I'm doing. But if your strategy is like, hey, I want to capitalize on the fact that I think Homa's underpriced and we'll get to the 6K range, I don't have a lot of confidence in the 6K range. We can maybe talk about some guys to help out some of the guys that are interested in playing Homa and another 10K guy at the top. Spoiler alert, there aren't many I would feel confident in, but like based on price, you have the ability to do that. I don't think it's crazy this week.
Yeah, and just to note, let's go to this 8K range, but Samuel says, I keep hearing leverage from Tambo. Yeah, this is the thing. I forgot to mention this off the top, but this is, something Andy talks about a lot on his Inside Golf podcast, myself in the past plenty. This is literally probably the laziest week of the entire season. It's football time. Everyone is focused on football. People watching this, Mayo and Feinberg did a show earlier. Kenny and I did a show. There's not much content. Rick did his DFS breakdown as always. Like, yeah, there's some content out there. Our guy, Degenerate75, is coming up next after this. You can check out his channel on YouTube and watch it right after this show. But the point is, people are just going to go what everybody's saying. That's why we're seeing these condensed ownerships within each range. There is a ton of leverage out there. And that's why I understand why Andy's good with like a Brendan Todd. I get it. I'm saying that range is not where I see it. For me, I see it in the 8Ks and the 7Ks and roster construction. I see 3 spots where I can do it, where I can still play Homa. I can still play some of those guys in the 9K. I'm with you, not as high on Bo Hostler getting all the ownership as the other spots. That would be the one that looks worse to me. But like Cole, Putnam, Spawn at 15-ish to 16-ish% or less for all of them, I'm fine with that. That to me is, I don't care. Like 85% of the field's not playing them. The 8Ks, 7Ks, and just overall roster construction, I think is where you can get much different this week overall. Let's go to this 8K range, though. Let's talk Webb Simpson down to Streelman Gim. They're both at the same price, and I'll keep an eye on the chat here for some of the other questions.
I like this range a lot. I'll just say it right now. I'm very heavily invested in Hubbard. I'm very heavily invested in Kevin Streelman. I like Doug Gim a lot as well. And as of now, I am tentatively in on Akshay, but that is dependent on the potential of him getting late steam. The main question I would ask you, Tambo, that I've been toiling on kind of all mid-morning afternoon is, who is more popular in your eyes, Akshay or Ches?
I got Akshay. Actually, I have Suh up there as well. I think people just
that's a non-starter for me. I'm
Yeah.
not. Yeah. No thanks on Suh. Ches and Akshay, I like a lot. I need to choose between one of those guys, and I was kind of going to let ownership tell the story for me. So I had Ches higher than Akshay this morning. I had Ches at 15 and Akshay at 13. Are you wildly off on that?
Yeah, well, not quite. No, I'm at 14 on Ches, but I got Akshay higher than Ches. So I could come down on some. I could be talked into it, but I just think, again, on this week, a lazy week, I don't know. It's close though. But the thing is, I will say this. One thing I'm worried about is that I'm way wrong on like Gim and Streelman pulling from that. So that's a good conversation piece here. Is I think there is a possibility that because of those Homa balanced builds where it starts with Homa and then drops down, I'm seeing where it's like Homa, somebody, and then an 8K guy, but it has to be a lower one. So I am worried that Gim and Streelman get a bunch of steam, and then Akshay still ends up coming in at like 12 to 15. Right now I have him higher. I have him 15 to 18 range, but I'm saying, without giving it all away, but just to say, like, I do think that there is a possibility the lower 8K range does end up pulling some. Like, what do you have Gim and Streelman at right now? Or what are your thoughts on them and Hubbard and those guys?
Gim 13, Streelman 10.
Yeah, see, I might be too low on those guys, and I think I would pull it from Akshay and from Justin Suh. I think you're right on Reevy. I think around 15 is good, but I definitely think
and I have Hubbard, by the way,
a ton. And Jason says it right here, was most tipped. People betting him is, again, I bet him 45. I think that's why he's most tipped.
Good number.
People like that number at 45. I think our guy RB bet him at 45. I'm pretty sure he did though, but just double check. But either way, just something to say. I think that's interesting. Sam says, leave 1,000 plus salary in a field like this. I think it's fine, actually. In a field like this, plenty of opportunity. It's not much of a difference.
Yeah, interesting. I'm not a big leaving money on the table guy unless it's like match play or tour championship week.
Right.
Just personally, I know people that have success doing it. I never leave in a regular golf week lineup, DraftKings lineup. I'll never leave more than 400 or 500 on the table. But the argument's probably stronger on this week because as we start talking about some of these lower price guys, like they're guys at 6.8 where I'm like, you could just swap them with a 7.8 guy and I wouldn't have much argument. So
yeah, I agree. And I'm with you on the 400 to 500 thing almost always, but one, especially on strong fields, majors, the pricing when it's more efficient, or even in the case when it's really soft, like this week, I know we said like Max Homa could be considered soft because of the betting odds and things like that. But just in general, it's more to me about strength of field than it is about pricing. But with strength of field, it's because what is it like? What was the year Bryson won the 3M?
Rocket Mortgage?
Rocket Mortgage. Yes. That year, I think it was it was like 8,500 or 9K and up. We're talking like 15 guys. It was Bryson, maybe Finau and Matt Wolff that made the cut. There was 3 guys total. Maybe it was I can't even remember. I think it was Charles Howell, but for sure Bryson and Wolff. But like nobody even made the cut. It was just there's lots of water there. There was lots of stuff going on. And so it was like that year you could have left 5,000, but no one's going to do that. I don't build for the optimal that Rick sends out in the Run Good Rundown. Like, if he sends out the optimal, I follow his newsletter every week. It's free. It's awesome. I read that. I'm not, people are like, oh, should I just leave $5,000 on the table? It seems like the optimal is always 46K. No, don't do that. It's just showing you what the optimal is. But what I'm saying is to leave $1,000 on the table in a very weak field and just let the chips fall where they may. I'm actually okay with that. So I actually don't have a problem with it. Anything else in this 8K range? Like, who are some of the big stands or miscuts or things like that you want to talk about in this range before we go to those sevens? Sevens is busy.
No thanks on Justin Suh. No thanks on Webb. No thanks on Herbert. I actually do not understand at all why Webb and Herbert are priced the way that they are. So those are 3 guys that I'm totally out on. I'd rather play Kuchar over Webb. and I'm in on Streelman, Gim, and Hubbard. I like those 3 guys a lot. And I will say, just to circle back to the balance question with Homa, like I'm doing this in some of my JT lineups, but like starting with Homa or JT for that matter, and then playing 3 guys in the 8s, not a bad build in my opinion, honestly. And those 3 guys for me are Streelman, Gibbett, Hubbard, but they can be anyone you want. Could be Akshay, even could be Chaz at 87 and 85.
So I'm with you on 2 of 3. One I'm in on, and I do play the strength of field game, but Lucas Herbert at 8,800 is right there above Akshay and Suh. The thing I follow with someone like him, again, it still doesn't even really pop out. When I go pull him on my stats and stuff like that, birdies are better, par 4 scoring, short game we know this about him, but like little things like that, I'm like, okay, I could sell myself in my mind on it, but it's way more about go look at the fields he plays in. It's all like majors. The Travelers was like a elevated event this year. The Heritage was an elevated event this year. He's playing in all the better fields. He's slightly above average price. It's way more of a leverage play of getting off of a guy like Akshay there and playing him. But I am with you on the lower end and the 3 8K guys in a lineup together. I've actually got 4 here, but Streelman, Gim, Hubbard with you. And I also always like my guy, Nick Hardy. So 8,200 for Nick Hardy, I'm okay with as well. I guess I could be sold on Kuchar. I'm not completely off him, but definitely not in on Webb and Suh, regardless.
Out on Montgomery too, yeah.
Yeah, give me quick thoughts on him, and then we'll go to these 7s.
He was just the bane of my existence last fall swing, and I was standing tall on this guy's not good at golf. He gained 11.5 strokes putting here last year, and finished 3rd, by the way. I will take the under on 11.5 strokes putting from Taylor Montgomery. And if it's anything, if it is the under that I think it is, I mean, he will need to get the way that he has hit the ball over the last couple of months. It'll need to be close to 11 again for him to really finish top 10 in my opinion.
It's crazy. This guy gains just dominates with the putter here last year. It's still just the 3rd place. Like putting numbers like that, you should just be winning everything. It's just craziness when you do that. But let's go to these 7s. Before we do, a couple others talking about, Nick says he was talking about starting in the 9K, skipping everyone up top. Doesn't think he's losing too much win equity there. Let me just see here. Let me look something up quickly. I'll just see what it, let me just see the betting tools. I'm just going to go to Data Golf for a second. I'm just curious what they say. People look at this all the time. So just from finishing position, you might not be like they've got 11% on Max Homa. Then it's 5, Thigala, Jagger, JT. After that, though, it just drops off a cliff. And already we're talking about Bo and Thigala being in the 9K range, being some of that. Herbert, Cole, Putnam, Higo, some of those guys. So I actually don't hate it. Like I said, I just think you got to be unique how you do it. Benet mentions the truth. 2 to 3 chalk guys, then some different plays does not hurt. That's the thing. People are looking for like 6 diamonds in the rough in a singlet. I'm just going to fade the whole world and hope that it comes through. It's not how you need to do it.
No.
The way Benet's doing it is awesome, and he's a great player. This guy crushes all across the board, has been for years. Just an underrated player that probably people don't follow or know about, but always in these chats appreciate the support. What did Visor Bo do to you? I don't know about Andy, but I know he won me a lot of money at the Houston Open that year. I had Poulter.
Really?
I had the call on Poulter. Probably my best call ever besides the Willie Z win when he got it, when I was off him all season and then called the win directly. But yeah, Bo messing up that ending and Poulter, by the way, looking for those points to get through for the Masters was pretty awesome for me. So why don't you like Bo? He's asking.
Interesting. You said that too, because I do love a good visor on the golf course. So
I can see you rocking the visor for sure.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to Bo's style by any means. I just think he's a terrible iron player, and I think that is distilling it down to a very elementary level. That is the most crucial component of PGA Tour golf. And until I see better iron play from Bo, it's generally a no from me. Doesn't mean he can't putt. He can putt his ass off sometimes. He's actually driving the ball okay too.
Sometimes. Yeah, we talked about Gim, Streelman. We like both those guys down there. Again, you're taking some ownership on. We'll see. I'm going to adjust the ownership at ShipItNation.com. I thought it was final, but I have a few more thoughts now that we're just talking through it. So that's the great thing about ShipItNation.com. If you guys haven't joined yet, all the major sports. So right now, the big ones, obviously PGA MLB still going on, football being the biggest, and then NBA, NHL right around the corner with MMA going on. We've had some great success there as well. If you guys want to check it out, go to shipitnation.com/join. Use promo code Andy. Very simple, helps Andy out. It's great for everybody, but 10% off for you guys for your first month or for your first 6 months. So it doesn't work on the annual plan because we've always said if you want to get in for 12 months, it's the best. Still use promo code Andy because we're always giving away money related to that. But just of note, you can get 10% off if you want to check it out. Andy, let's move on. Let's go to the 7K range. I don't know. There's enough guys in here to talk about. It's pretty wide, but I think that's why you can just get a ton of leverage in here because who do you even have owned in here? Davis Thompson for sure.
Davis Thompson.
Higo.
Higo. I think that, Quest and Ryder will be like 10, 11. I don't really have anybody above. I have Davis Thompson as the highest at 15.5. But I don't have anybody above. I don't have anybody above 16. Do you?
No, and I got Sam Stevens up there some as well, but the low sevens, almost nobody, maybe EVR. Guys like, I don't know if Chuck Hoffman will actually get it. People talk about him and they never play him. Lashley, Kevin Yu, those guys are getting a little love. And then maybe Sam Ryder, Garrett Higo, of course, Quest, Eckroat, definitely.
Yeah, what about Eckroat? And then, okay, Eckroat and Dylan Wu and Kevin Yu. The Dylan Wu and Kevin Yu, I have both above 10.
Yes, same.
Yeah. So I think that Wu will be like, I have Wu at 13 and Kevin Yu at 11.
I've got 11 and 10, but we're close enough. Again, like I said, I look somewhere within that range. We should be pretty close, but I think in general, that's definitely something you could look at. So I just think two things I'll say, because, in spirit of time and everything else, we do want to have some fun with you guys at the end, do this lineup, all that stuff. I just think for me, Hubbard to Davis Thompson, maybe even Eckroat. I'm trying to say bubbles. Like Hubbard to Eckroat for sure is a bubble that's getting played plenty. And then Higo down to maybe Lashley. And you can include Kevin Yu in that, but I'm saying like the 7,400 to 7,700 and then the 79 to 8,300. These are the bubbles that fit with multiple players or at least two players in these lineups. So in something like single entry, you could just look to fade this area and say there is enough guys in the above 8K range. There's enough guy down low. If you go the double stud build up top, it kind of does both for you. I guess we're skipping ahead here. I said we build a lineup at the end, but when people are kind of watching this show and thinking how we're thinking, it doesn't mean it's going to be right. It's just kind of thinking about process, ideas, ways that you can get better as a DFS player, things we're all about at shipitnation.com and just breaking it down, Andy. Seeing that right there, it's like if you did a Homa JT lineup, you cannot play any of these guys. Do you have massive FOMO over skipping this range? Of course. We named like 7 guys in there that we like and think are solid plays, and they're not getting crazy enough ownership that you just need to fade them for sure. But the idea of just being off of them and having a different style build with more leverage in it while still playing the highest owned guy on the slate in a max Homa, that all adds up to a reason that can work. And why, again, I just don't think enough people think about that when they're building out their PGA DFS lineups. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, the bottom 7s, there are some guys that I like. I'll give you the guys that I'm in on. Well, I'll start at the top. I like Peter Quest a lot. I like Sam Ryder a lot. I love Nate Lashley. I'll be very aggressive on Nate Lashley this week. I have that as a clear misprice based on my numbers on him. Kevin Yu, Charlie Hoffman, Carson Young, Ryan Gerard. Those are just some names of guys that I'm totally in on in this range. If you have a specific question about another guy, drop it in the chat and we'll answer it. At the very least, we'll say in or out on any guy you throw in. But I want to give time at the end for us to build a lineup. So anybody else in the 7s you want to briefly highlight before we talk about these guys in the 6s?
I guess Higo, I'm with you on all the guys you said, actually. So surprisingly, we're on a lot of the same this week. Higo's the guy. I guess I would rather eat Higo's ownership than Eckroat's as of now. That's how I'm seeing it. So I've taken a stand there. I could play Luke List. He's at 7,600 where you have Stevens, Ryder, Wu. They're all good. Maybe the answer is play them all. I don't know. I'm just saying that's the guys that stand out to me. So he would be someone that stands out, but there's a lot of potential leverage plays in here. Like if you look at these guys that aren't getting owned at all, it's because they're all like middle of the road. But at the bottom 7K range, when you've got Novak, Lipsky, Neesmith, Duncan, Gordon, Ramey, all these guys, I'm not playing them all. I'm not going to get there. I'm just saying I feel like there's plenty of leverage here. Stallings is one that stands out for me. Someone said this earlier about Joel Damon playing in the same group. Calum Tarren's another one someone just brought up, but Joel Damon in the same group as Homa. That seems perfect, actually. And I don't have any right now, but just to think about out loud, like no pressure at all. Want to prove he's just better. We saw it. You watched the documentary on Netflix. Damon knows how good he is, but meanwhile, he's like, screw it. If I'm not going to qualify for this U.S. Open, let me have a White Claw at the turn. And then next thing you know, he goes out and qualifies. He's like, I better get serious about this. So, a guy like him is just so fun-loving, happy to be there, whatever, but he's actually a great player. He just, even a guy like Homa is in that documentary. Homa shows up to Joel Damon's party when he's drinking with his buddies, and Homa's like, I'm not drinking. I got to go back to work tomorrow. I'm out. Damon's like, oh, come on, man. But like, there's different guys in that sense, but I think that's at least somewhat interesting. Anybody else in the 7Ks you wanted to talk about? Someone said, Jason, our guy, Taryn, been great. Quest, you mentioned we like him. I mentioned Tyler Duncan. I like him. David Lipsky, I like.
Yeah, I would say
I don't
Duncan.
think.
Sink,
I don't
think. Lipsky, yes. Duncan, no for me. Sink and Taryn, no, though. And Zach Blair, that's a 6K guy, but Randy threw him in the chat. That is a big yes for me. I've never heard that before, Scotty Scheffler. I'll take it. That's my girlfriend's favorite player. So, guy's the best player in the world.
And pretend you're him,
dude.
Just look like him. Yeah, you're all set. And you mentioned what Randy said. I was in on that too. I guess that's a good segue to the 6K range. And then if you guys could throw your single entry thoughts from everything you've heard today, because all we're trying to do is put together some of the stuff we talked about in the last 5 minutes. Again, we'll have this segmented out. We had the intro off the top. We had the preview today where we couldn't even get the intro right, but we'll get that figured out. We did have some intro to what this is going to be all about. We had some more time. Typically, we'll try and keep this under an hour, but just in general today, we're going to try and wrap this up. But we'll go to the 6K range. You guys throw some single entry thoughts in the chat for what you think a good sort of starting point is. Who are some of the guys we want to see? Let's see some consensus on these picks, and we'll start plugging them in and then seeing how we can be different with them. Try and throw in some thoughts around that. But also, too, we got to keep it going here. Let's just see where we're at. We need some more likes and then subscribers. I should note this, too. You still have time to get in the draw, but tomorrow on our Thursday Night Football show with Hoop, myself, and Title, it's going to be on the Mayo Media Network. But because we crossed 3,000, we are going to be giving away a 6-month bundle to SHIPITNation.com. Even if you're already subscribed, you already used promo code Andy, you just get the upgrade and you get the additional. But right now, it's the tour for 4 to get to 4,000 before we go on the drive for 5 to get to 5,000, where our biggest prize yet, an annual, will be given away. But Andy, 6K thoughts. Let's go into the 6K range as people start to throw their thoughts into the chat.
Zach Blair, Ryan Moore, maybe Satoshi is the lowest I would go. Those are the only 3 guys I have in my pool in the 6s. Moore, Blair, Satoshi Kodaira. Can't say I feel wonderful about any of the 3. What about you?
Zach Blair was one. Preston Summerhays. I think Sky sold me on him. Skyhook DFS. He won a couple college events, but one of the events he won got him into this. Don't hate that. Again, I'll just take a stand on a few guys down here. 6,600. If you landed there, I don't know, Hickok, Bling, Higgs, those guys,
Kevin Roy. Yeah.
Kevin Roy. Yeah, let me mark him down. I think he's interesting. And then I think people are playing Streb, but not like they aren't actually, but that's who's going to pop up if people are going down here. And there was one more guy. Kevin Tway, former champion of this event, actually. But my dad loves Kevin Tway. So I always have a little something. I got to play some Kevin Tway, but we'll see. Anybody else in the 6K range you want to talk about before we get into building this single entry lineup?
In the 6K range, no. We covered everyone I wanted. Andrew Novak, did we hit on? That could be a guy for the single entry build. I don't know what his price is. I haven't done a ton on Novak. He's not in my pool as of now. But I can check him out a little bit further too.
I actually like him, and I'll start the single entry with him. We'll take my guy Alex. He supports us all the time. He's in all these chats. He always comes in to help out. Love to see it. And I'm going to take that because I mentioned him. A couple things. First of all, I don't mind him. I like him as a play.
My
Second of
numbers
all,
don't mind him either, by the way. I'm totally cool with that.
I think he's fine. And the other thing I'll say is because just talking out loud, like for me, I've got him ranked out pretty well in longer term, of course, but tee to green, bogey avoidance, par 4 scoring, scrambling in general, approach, all those factors. So I'm okay with that. And I like that he's not in the bubble. He's not in that bubble. So he may get us towards a lineup up top. Do you want to? Okay, we'll see what these guys say. Let's see what everybody else says. Someone said Jaeger might be a good starting point. Someone said fade the 6K. I think I'm okay fading the 6K, Andy, unless we kind of land there.
What is Novak at, by the way?
7,300.
Okay, let's put him in.
Yeah, I've got him. That's our starting point. So we've got Novak in. Someone said, how about Kiz, the new coach? I don't think so.
Put it as a maybe, just because we'll take the suggestion. But
I have to take 701 DFS's suggestion though, because I'm assuming he's talking about those chocolate bars I mentioned. He said, I saw them at Walmart last week. Hit me up in the Discord. If you can find them, I will pay. I just want to get them. I want to try them out. It's just something I'm interested in checking out. Mr. Beast is a beast, the content king. I would love to try out his chocolate bars, even though I know I'm being sold. I just want to try them.
That's, by the way, 2 for Jaeger, because I think the conversation at the top is we have one that's saying fade Homa, rock with Sahith, but now a couple that are in on Jaeger. Jaeger feels like, especially if we're looking to fade the 6K range, I think we have to say no Homa.
Do we have to? I think we have to go Jaeger JT. I know we get our own input on this too, especially for the first show. But if the chat wants Jaeger, we fade Sahith and Homa, that is a play.
Well, I'll say this. If we're talking about like me and you each get one of our own guy, I'm not going to like ride for JT. Like if we're saying each give us our own guy, throw Nate Lashley in there for me. I don't need JT in this lineup. But I would say it seems like we both like Jaeger at the top. Like it seems like we can, and the chat does too. It seems like we have somewhat close to consensus on Jaeger at the top.
I like Jaeger. I like your Lashley call. I'll ride for Jaeger. I always like some Steven Jaeger. I think he's fine up top. I like that Lashley is at the bottom range of that. But what I'm saying is we're getting close to where we might just land on JT. We need some more people to throw some stuff out.
Yeah.
But they said Jaeger, Hubbard, Quest. We already got Jaeger. Where's your take? We should take one from Kevin here because Hubbard or Quest. Where do you land on that one?
I prefer Hubbard, but if we need the discount, I'm cool on Quest too. Put Hubbard in tentatively, and Quest can be a pivot if we need a little bit more money. So Steven on Lashley, love that. Lashley's in.
Okay, let me look at this. So Hubbard, what do we got left here?
Also, if we need money, Carson Young just got thrown out. I'm a fan of that as well.
We're not playing Weber. What's Carson Young is 7,000 this week.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, you know who it lands on if we do that?
JT.
No, Thigala.
So if we put in Young as well.
So this is a version of it. It was Jaeger we started with Novak. We went with Jaeger, Lashley, but then it goes to Hubbard, Young, Thigala. So really it's like Thigala and Lashley, maybe Hubbard a little bit, but then like Young, Novak, and Jaeger just can't be owned in comparatively to those other guys that we just talked about. It's just how far in or out are you on Thigala? I like Thigala this week.
I like Thigala too. We did get multiple Dylan Woos, by the way. If there's a way to sneak him in there as well.
I'm gonna save this quick and then see.
Lash is definitely in, Steven. Do not worry. That's a non-starter.
So let's do this 2v2 then. Thigala and Young. So a 2v2 is a two guys versus two other guys for those new or watching or don't know what that is. So Thigala and Carson Young could become Woo and Spawn or Putnam. Woo, Spawn.
Interesting one.
Woo versus Spawn or Putnam or Thigala. Let's do this. Let's get the chat involved. We're getting close to an hour. We're at the top of the hour. Again, go after this. Check out our guy, Degenerate75 on his channel. That's the plan in the future is the idea, run them back to back. Another friend of the pod, partner with ShipItNation.com. Awesome. We did our NFL Week 2 early look show. If you guys want to go check that out on this channel after, it's free. But just to say it, like, let's get the chat involved. 1, Press the number 1 and enter it in the chat if you want Theegala and Carson Young. Press the number 2 in the chat if you want Woo and one of Putnam and Spawn. And let's have that conversation while they do this, Andy. Putnam and Spawn. If we did go that route, where would you land on that build?
Putnam, I would probably go with over Spawn because
so close.
It's I don't have like a strong opinion on either, but Putnam's a better putter. Really I trust his ability to keep the ball in play. His lack of distance isn't really going to hurt him here. And he's been a much better iron player as well. Just like bird's eye view for you, is it 1 or 2?
It's 2. I just think the only thing interesting about 1 with Theegala, because I do like him, is look, we're not going way off the map here, anything crazy. We didn't end up on the double stud build, all of that, but it is kind of a unique way to play Theegala because people are playing Homa Theegala or Theegala starting point or something. How many people are really playing Jaeger Theegala? I don't know. Probably like somewhere in that range after the fact, but not that much. But I like Woo quite a bit. And I also like the idea of picking one of Spawn or Putnam. Just nobody has this build. It's got real upside to it. Like
I agree. Two's winning right now anyway.
And the chat likes, okay, so there was 1 Spawn, 1 Putnam, but 2s are winning. Oh, shout out to my guy, Todd. Great to see Todd here, my good buddy. And last year's, very recent, by the way, Fantasy Golf World Champion, $1 million winner, TYA, Todd. He won.
Oh, is this a guy in Memphis?
Yeah, we were down in Memphis together. He brought me down. We had a great time. Incredible event. Got to see it. Big sweat down the stretch. Tony Finau could not make anything. He had a 1-under bogey-free round on that course on that day. Was absolutely insane. But now Alex wants Theegala. I mean, this is just, is this still live? Yes, this is still live. We're here. So what do you think, Andy? I think it's got to be 2. We've talked ourselves out of where were you at on it? Where were you at on it?
I would vote 2.
Okay.
I would vote 2. Like if it's overwhelming sentiment for 1 in the chat, I think 1's caught up a little bit, but it still seems like 2 has a slight edge. I would personally go 2 with Putnam. But do you feel stronger about Spawn than Putnam? I think 2, like this is a good, I tend to be, I know a lot of people look at single entries as the time to go more chalky. I don't necessarily think it's the time where you need to go crazy leverage, but I think if you have a single entry where Jaeger is our guy at the top, and then we're going down to Putnam, and then we get those guys that we already talked about, like Lashley's not going to be anything crazy popular. Woo is getting some ownership, but like nothing that we need to be overly concerned about. Hubbard is like moderate. Like it's a really good single entry build. Like it's unique in the way that we have it up top, but you're not getting too crazy or wild with any plays in the 6K range. It's pretty balanced. I like it a lot.
I'm going with Putnam. I'm making the final call here, just in the spirit of time and the chat and enough of it. Look, I pulled up my stuff. Long-term model, Putnam beats Spawn. The other guys all pop. And just to give you an idea, like Woo in the top 10, Novak in the top 15. So if anybody wants to know, this is what it is, and this is what we're rolling with. I put it in just so you guys know. Again, show going a little long, and that's okay for week 1. The $200 75K driver with 20K up top, we will run a $5,000 free roll if that hits. So the breakdown is this. We went with Jaeger. I'm just trying to think about it in order. Jaeger, Putnam, Hubbard, Woo, Lashley, Novak. That's going to be the build. That's what we're rolling with, Andy. I'm excited. It all pops in my stuff. Obviously, Jaeger's right there too. Spawn is right there too. Somebody said Jaeger and down to 7K. We already have Jaeger. That's what we're rolling with there. That we just gave it out what it ended up as. And then, yeah, please still send the chocolate bars if you have them. I just, we got to go with number 2 here, my friend. So fade the chat, Aaron says. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. The chat was split. So we're kind of just putting our own spin on. I can only imagine, Andy, though, when this gets to major season or something like that, and we have this show going and we're getting number 1s and 2s in the chat and everyone's dialed in. So I'm excited for the show upcoming. This is the first one to break it down for you guys. Andy, I'll kick it to you, man. Final thoughts, and you can make up for your intro by giving us a solid outro if you want. I'll give you that too, my friend.
Yeah. Thanks to everybody in the chat for hopping in. This is a blast. I mean, the whole point is to the most updated, last minute, all of the questions, super interactive. Chat's going to be a big part of the show. So great to see people interacting in that as well. We're going to do the single entry thing. I'm sure we can brainstorm more cohesive ways of doing it. So that's going to always be a part of it as well. There's always going to be some incentive to stick around. There's always going to be some giveaways and some deals as well. Tambo mentioned the promo code Andy. Not only that, but I just want to give a very quick shout out. I know we're short on time too. I hope there's some overlap of NFL guys in this chat as well, because like I'm cooking with gas with NFL in the Ship It Nation Discord as well. We started 4-0. I'm talking through every single game. Any questions that you have NFL wise for me, the place to find me is exclusively in the Ship It Nation Discord. It's not in Twitter DMs. It's not on Twitter. I'm not posting my picks there. All my NFL stuff is completely exclusive to Ship It Nation. Not to mention, I will absolutely answer any golf questions in that Discord as well. So promo code Andy for all of that, 10% off right now. I believe, did I miss anything, Tampa? I think I got everything in there.
No, you got it, man. Appreciate everybody watching. Appreciate the support. It's going to be a great season ahead. We're very excited for it. We'll be here for every week that there's PGA DFS. That's what we've committed to. So I think it's like 43 events or something. We were calculating it all out. It's going to be a good time. Check us out. After this, like I said, go check out our other friend and partner, Degenerate75. Some are probably already over there, and that's okay. We'll have this show every week for you guys the same time as the season goes on. Thank you guys so much for watching. For Andy, for myself, ToeTagginTambo, let's ship it.